Now, do you know what that is?
An uncut diamond?
No, it isn't. It looks like a big sort of fox's glacium, doesn't it?
Yes, yes.
In fact, it has a very useful role, and it's something that could be loads of them about in the sort of 21st century.
Yeah.
And what's that?
I don't know. But if you put it in there, I might be able to.
No, you won't. No, you won't at all.
Anyway, these are things that are going to change our lives for the better in the future and create a utopia that we should all be living in.
Something we're talking about later on. So for a vision of the future and much, much more, welcome to Good Morning. Hello, good morning.
And a very warm welcome to Good Morning this Tuesday, the 9th of January. It's just after 10:32. We've got a packed programme coming up for you now between now and noon.
Yes, the all dancing, all singing, all acting Samantha Jarnus proves versatility isn't pie in the sky.
Ainsley ladles out some lingering advice to lavish some loveliness on luscious lentils. Basically, it's about lentils.
Al Pacino tells of achieving his ambition to work with fellow superstar Robert De Niro.
We investigate new information about the plight of baby girls who are left to die in China.
And we meet the mum who wants her head frozen in a bid for life eternal. Hello again. We're feeling sort of vaguely tropical at the moment, as you see. We are in a sort of Mediterranean-type bar because we're talking about holidays later on with Earl Hanrahan. But right now I want to say hello to Michael Fish. Hi, Michael.
Hello, Nick.
Oh, are we likely to get sort of Mediterranean weather today?
Well, you are in a way, because a lot of people actually think that the Mediterranean is a place to go for a winter sun holiday, and it isn't necessarily, because in the winter that's when they get all their rain. So the weather in the Mediterranean can sometimes be colder and wetter than it is here in Britain. And that actually in one or two places is the case at the moment. But back to Britain, and the real problem is, well, it's not a problem, but we have an area of rain that's clearing away. You should be brightening up in Birmingham in the very near future, the back of that cloud moving away from you. There are some showers, though, coming along behind. So an hour or two yet of rain across those easternmost parts of England, where incidentally there's been just about 1.5 inches of rain in many places during the course of the night. But all the while, the brighter weather feeding across. There should be some sunshine in all but the extreme east, I think, by this afternoon. But then these showers in the west filtering across, the odd one getting through to central and eastern areas. But most of the showers are going to be in the west, where some could be quite heavy, a little bit of hail and perhaps a clap or two of thunder. And it's still going to be quite windy, although not as windy as it was yesterday, but mild, up to 11 degrees in most parts. Now those winds starting off quite strong, but easing down during the evening and overnight, except in those northwestern parts. And as those lighter winds come along and the showers die down and eventually pull back just to those western coasts, you might well find one or two mist and fog patches forming in central and eastern areas of England. And a mild night, lowest temperatures about 5 or 6 degrees. Tomorrow, and indeed really for the rest of the week, it's the same old mixture. In other words, it stays mild, but it's often going to be windy. There'll be showers and longer outbreaks of rain from time to time as well. That's all from me for the time being. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Back to Birmingham.
And thank you very much, and welcome back to Good Morning. There's still plenty to come between now and noon. Steven Spielberg's mum on the importance of listening to your children and feeding them for success.
From the lead in Greece to waitress in Pie in the Sky, the irrepressible Samantha Jarnus.
Comedian Steve Punt takes a lucky dip as he dabbles in the art world.
And as thoughts turn to sun-kissed shores, Will sighs through the holiday bargain jungle.
And we ask if coverage of babies left to die in China hinders or helps them.
And keep those calls coming in on HRT. Whatever your worries and doubts about just how effective it might be, do call us now. 0121 415 5000. It's the subject of our phone-in later.
Now, all morning we've been talking about utopia and what's your idea of a perfect world. Well, paradise for some people, would you believe, is the idea of being deep frozen when they die, only to be reawoken in hundreds of years' time. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi thriller, and certainly Mel Gibson was at it in the film Forever Young.
Cryonics, as the science is called, is big news in the States, and in this country 17 people have already signed up for the big chill. Among them is Maria Camacho, the first mother in Britain to invest in the promise of eternal life. And Maria joins us right now with her children Michael, Romina and Rosanna, and also here is Garrett Smythe, who's founder member and spokesman of the cryonics organisation Allcore. Good morning.
Good
to you all.
morning.
Maria, why did you decide that you wanted to have yourself frozen?
Because I want to live in the future. I want to see how the future is.
But how can you be so certain that this will work?
Well, I hope so, because science advances quite a lot, even from day to day. I can see in the news. And
but it's costing you a lot of money, isn't it? And you're on Social Security, and what are you putting beside each month?
£25 every month.
Yeah. And the idea is that when you die, your head will be frozen.
Yes, my brain is.
Yeah.
The more
Not
important
your
thing.
body, just your head.
No, because my body, I mean, it's more expensive to have your body frozen, so I prefer my brain only.
Don't you find that idea a bit gruesome?
Well, it may be gruesome, but it's okay if you are going to live in the future. I think it is more gruesome to die forever and to be buried.
What do other people think of this? I mean, you must have friends you've talked about.
And my family, yes.
What do
they
they
think it's crazy idea. And my family in Colombia think it's the same.
You come from Colombia,
Yes,
then, yeah.
I have been here.
Why do you
20 years.
think you don't find it crazy? Are you interested in science fiction?
Yes, and astronomy and all that. My parents were interested in science or art.
Even your children
Yes,
go along
they
with the idea, don't
Yes.
they? They support you in your idea, but they also want to be frozen when
Yes,
they die.
I have been trying with Michael, but the thing is they don't do insurance for children under 18 years old.
Yeah.
I have been trying to have Michael as member of
Michael,
Factor now.
what do you think about it? I mean, is it a good idea, or do you think it's a bit yucky?
It's a good idea.
Really? And so when you're grown up and you die, you won't be frightened of the idea of having your head frozen
No.
and one day reappearing in a world could be hundreds of years ahead of us?
No.
You're
Do
not
you like the
frightened
idea,
by it?
Romina?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you, Rosanna? You're all for it?
Yeah.
So let's speak to Garrett then. You actually are a trained neuroscientist, aren't you?
Yes, sort of.
Yeah. and you've signed up.
I have.
Well, I mean, it's your own company, but I mean, you're into the whole concept. Why are you so sure that it can work?
Well, we're sort of a self-help group in Britain, but one isn't absolutely sure that it will work. I mean, it's a research project which can work or not work, but the alternative, I mean, for example, in Maria's case, she's paying £25 a month, which, if Maria smoked, would, she'd spend a lot more on cigarettes, which would do no good for health at all. And if it does work, there's a very long prospect, and if it doesn't, I'd be dead anyway. I'd be dead anyway in my case. So.
What do you think may happen, say 200, 300 years' time, when they have found a cure for whatever Maria eventually dies of? What will they do?
Well, probably in less time than that, because, I mean, this morning on the news there was an announcement of a breakthrough in growing tissue in the laboratory. In cells they've been able to grow for a long time, but actually they're getting towards growing organs. Actually, some time ago there was that thing with the mouse and the human ear. You may have seen the pictures.
Yes.
And that's the business of having the brain installed, because you've got all your memories and everything like that are in the brain, and what makes us the sort of people that we are. But physically, our genes describe what we are physically, and that, in principle, you can take one cell and grow
so
a
what
whole
do you
new
think they'll
body
be
or
able
a whole
to
new
do?
set of organs or whatever. Well, basically replace everything that's missing, repair damage or whatever. The kind of technology that you'd need to do would be minuscule on a mechanical scale, but then just last week they announced that incredibly small motor, the size of a full stop.
So you're saying that one day you think that it may be possible for them to grow a new body for Maria, as well as cure her head of whatever she died from?
But who's
Yeah.
going
And
to
the
decide
kids-
then? Who's going to decide when you come back? Whether it's 100 years on, 200 years on, who suddenly says, oh, it's the time to get that Garrett Smythe float sorted?
I mean, if you look at it from
warm him
now,
up.
I mean, technically now, anyone frozen is legally dead, and so who's going to say, well, heavens above, these are just dead people? But when you have the technology to cure someone, to revive them, the definition of death changes. I mean, there was a thing in the news recently about how iffy the definition of death can be, the woman that woke up, luckily. And that when you have the technology to wake someone, that you no longer have a dead person, you have a patient. And any doctor with the ability
You just
to
have the head of
to
a
revive
patient, though.
to revive a patient.
You don't find this?
No, because
I find it quite repulsive. Just the
if
thought
you
of it.
have you ever seen how a heart transplant works? I mean, if you do ever watch it on TV, turn the colour down, because it's much easier to watch in black and white. But I mean, if I said to you, you're very ill, I've got this new way of dealing with you. This was only in the 60s when it first started. I'm going to rip your heart out, throw it away, and get someone's heart off a road accident, and put that in you, and that'll keep you going. I mean, that sounds awful when you describe it like that, but you know, it's the same thing. Any medical procedure at the beginning just sounds dreadful, but if it works and you know, it becomes a
How can you be
thing,
sure then? How can you be sure to trust the people who will be looking after your bodies?
Well, oddly enough, someone asked me that who actually had paid their pension funds to Robert Maxwell at some stage a little while ago. I mean, the absolute answer is you can't know it completely, but one of the reasons I joined Alcor in the first place was that, well, first of all, it was a large organisation which makes it sort of more stable, hopefully. And the other thing was that they wouldn't let anyone in the position of power who wasn't also interested for themselves and who wasn't signed up themselves. So one hopes that, you know, through generations you're always handing over to people who are also interested, and therefore will you know, carry on.
Do people think you're a bit of a nutter?
I'm educating them against it. I mean, it's at first sight, as I say, it's like explaining about heart transplants or something. It sounds awful, but when you actually think about it for a while, I mean, actually, my real hope is that I won't have to use it at all. I mean, I view cryonics as a bit like, you know, we're all on the Titanic. Eventually, one day, it's going to go down, and we're, you know, madly trying to build a lifeboat, some extra lifeboats or something like that. Well, you're really hoping that the Titanic doesn't go down. It actually gets to shore, and we can all get off normally. And I'm hoping that the genetic researchers, Manchester University is a good one, will come up with ways of making us live longer in a healthy manner. I mean, you know, HRT is a sort of an early sort of start of that kind of thing, but there will be great strides. Not long ago there was a gene found that could possibly give us another 40 years each of healthy young life.
Well, look, we'll leave it there, and thank you for talking to us, and perhaps we'll see you some other time, some other place.
We'll all meet up with same heads but different bodies.
Cracking idea. Anyway, we're going to talk about...
Interesting idea.
We're going to talk about investing in the future now in a sort of different way, because it's time for the second episode of comedian Steve Punt's new Good Morning series, Investing Passions, which looks at unusual ways of making a tidy fortune. This week, Steve canvasses the art world for hot tips. Can he spot a budding Picasso and add a few noughts to the £100 he's got to invest?